days Israel will strike.
I don't think so. I'm afraid that they've lost this opportunity.
Ambassador John Bolton, great to see you. Have a good weekend.
Oh, yeah, have a great weekend. We may be at World War III. You have a good time. So, of course, that was John Bolton on Fox News saying that a hit would have to happen before August 21st. That would now be tomorrow as I speak to you now on the 20th of August on this episode 183 from MediaMonarchy.com. We're going through the massive post, geopolitics and war whores, powder kegs looking for sparks, and all of these situations playing out in and around the world unfortunately set the stage for some kind of catastrophic catalyzing event, some kind of false flag kickoff event to a wider war. Whether it's the sinking of the Maine, or even the Lusitania, or Pearl Harbor, or the Gulf of Tonkin, or the Reichstag fire, or 9/11, false flag events carried out in disguise to blame your real political opponents. It's happened all throughout history. And ultimately, I think that's what 9/11 Truth is about. It's ultimately anti-war. That, as we know from Sun Tzu, all war is based on deception. So let's continue down this ugly geopolitical grand chessboard, if you will. U.S.-Israel increasing military cooperation, holding joint exercises. That's from almanar.com. Israeli soldier defends her sexy F-book prisoner pics. This is from Danger Room. And we mentioned on the previous B-side episode about hate blogger Hal Turner, of course, being burned by the government he served, of course, being a paid FBI informant, a national security intelligence asset. Just like Rumsfeld told people to torture, then you got to burn some people to do it. Unfortunately, the one synonymous with the torture photographs, Lindy England, is from my home state of West Virginia. Israeli soldier defends her sexy F-book prisoner pics, posing and smiling with blindfolded Palestinian prisoners, and then posting the pics to Facebook. What's the big deal? An Israeli reserve officer asks. There's no violence or intention to humiliate anyone in the pictures. Eden Abergil tells Army Radio, I know I didn't do anything wrong. Nonetheless, the photos taken during Abergil's active duty and part of a gallery labeled IDF, the best time of my life. This is all drawn condemnation from Israeli and Palestinian officials alike. In a YouTube clip, IDF spokesman Captain Barak Raz calls Abergil's photos repulsive and shameful. Palestinian Authority spokesman Ghassan Khatib calls them an example of life under occupation. More on this story from Al Jazeera and IDF spokesperson and the BBC and Haaretz. Egypt seizes explosives on a ship coming from Israel. This is on english.people.com.cn. And again, I'm not on the, by any stretch. It's all the Jews. I don't really buy into the one unified field conspiracy theory. They're multi-generational serial killers, and sometimes they bump each other off and they battle for territory, but they don't do anything that's going to cause they're not going to overthrow the game board. But sometimes you got to whack somebody. So, one, I'm not going to say for a second that Israel and the Mossad and the IDF haven't had their hands and fingerprints on many of the more egregious false flag war whore activities of the last 70 years. But again, we're not here to constantly point fingers at the Jews and the illegal aliens. Again, these are all things used to divide and conquer. Divide and conquer happens on multiple levels, but again, we're also going to point out the information where we see it and when we try and put puzzle pieces together. However, from allgov.com, as we return to the North American Union with no shortage of war whore activity happening surrounding the embattled down, down, down in the polls, Obama-Saya. The real war against terrorists is not in Afghanistan, but it's in Pakistan, Yemen, and Somalia. While much of the public's attention continues to focus on Afghanistan, the U.S. has been quietly ramping up its attacks on al-Qaeda in Yemen, one of the many countries into which the war on terror has expanded under President Barack Obama, although he doesn't call it the war on terror. We change names, we change faces, the policy stays the same. According to the New York Times, the American military has carried out at least 4 covert strikes in Yemen since December. Some have had mixed results. An attack in late May killed not only a group of al-Qaeda operatives, but also a Yemeni deputy governor who was trying to talk to terrorists into quitting their fight. President Obama has also approved an expansion of CIA drone strikes in Pakistan, as well as raids against terrorists in Somalia. Because these are not officially military operations, there's some concern that if the Americans involved are captured, they will not have the protection of the Geneva Convention. Oops. Obama-Saya, the Prince of Peace Prize, expanding the war. Saying one thing, doing quite the opposite, and as if to help shine a light on that headline, real war against terrorists not in Afghanistan, but in Pakistan, Yemen, and Somalia. Our next bit from Reuters. Afghanistan says they found 1.8 billion barrel oil field. That may let you know more of why we're in Afghanistan. The graveyard of empires. Sure does have a lot of drugs and oil, because that's their god. Gold, oil, and drugs. 61 truckloads with 300 tons of explosives go missing in India. We can get this story from Xinhua as well as AsianAge.com and also the report from NDTV.com.
Now moving on to the other big story we've been tracking, the 60 trucks full of explosives that have gone missing from a government-owned explosive factory in the Dholpur district of Rajasthan. In fact, they've gone missing in Madhya Pradesh. Now news coming in that 4 of those trucks have been found in Rajgarh but without any explosive, and the police are questioning the driver of the trucks for more on that. Well, for more details, let's go across to Rubina Khan, who has been tracking this story. Rubina, what can you tell us?
Gargi, at the moment we have got a lot of information. First and foremost is that that one of the employees of Ganesh trading company, explosive and magazine trading company, was picked up and he was interrogated by the Sagar police, and he has revealed a lot of details, and they have got down the breakups of all the 60 trucks where they have been diverted. These 60 trucks were meant for Ganesh magazine and explosives in Sagar district, but they never reached Sagar district, and it was only the SP Sagar, when he started interrogation, he found out that these 60 trucks were meant for Sagar but they never reached. So after a preliminary investigation, they found out that most of these trucks had been diverted to different places.
Ah, diverted. And that's the kind of story that has the red flags that we see in shady black op false flag activities, deviating from standard operating procedure. Continuing down the geopolitics and warwhores list of powder kegs looking for sparks. In a pretty landmark interview, former Pakistani General Hamid Gul, last name G-U-L, gave an interview with Alex Jones that's up on InfoWars, where, among other things, he notes, as many others have quite recently, fearing that some type of World War III is imminent. Again, I can't get into all the amazing things that they go into in this interview, but as we've discussed in the past, Pakistan, their intelligence is called the ISI. It was set up with help from the CIA. They were involved in funding and training the Mujahideen against the Soviets in the late 70s. Operation Cyclone, Brzezinski, Gates, all the same ghouls, same ploys. And again, that's what I think a lot of these alternative news and truth movements whether they're about food or 9/11 or whatever, are about taking these tools that have been used by our misleaders for so long and showing them to the public and breaking them in front of everyone. He also, of course, notes, this being former ISI, Hamid Gul, that essentially there is an elite that run things. 9/11 was a false flag provocateur event with the help of intelligence agencies. The videos, the audio is all there. I implore you to check out that interview with former Pakistani General Hamid Gul. We also have all the related geopolitical war whore updates at the bottom here, where we note it's definitely Obama's war now. The same number of U.S. troops have died in Afghanistan under Obama as did during Bush's time. We get this story from the Daily Mail and from all around the world, but that should really put things into perspective for you. That in just, year and a half? More deaths thanks to the Afghani surge. And as we're about to get into, all the talk about the war in Iraq is pretty much over. Drawing attention, misdirecting, it's all smoke and mirror, dog and pony, bread and circus, pick your analogy. But from the New York Times, U.S. to double mercenary forces in Iraq after 2011 military pullout. That's not their headline, that's a more accurate headline from blacklistednews.com. As the U.S. military prepares to leave Iraq by the end of 2011, the Obama administration is planning a remarkable civilian effort buttressed by a small army of contractors to fill the void. Filling the void. All done by contractors, private military contractors. That's something, again, that Gul gets into. Of course you're going to have black op activity. You essentially have wars internationally being played out and carried out by mercenaries, by people who will work for someone who pays them the top dollar. They pay no allegiance to any flag or any nation or any country or any corporation, perhaps. That's helped us get further into this situation. When you don't even have people believing the phony official stories or not, believing you're fighting for your country. Army AWOLs and desertions double, sex crimes triple. That's from allgov.com as well. Pentagon avoids giving some veterans benefits by just changing the name of their disorder. We have a poll being reported by Press TV that's out of Iran. They hate the great Satan, but we know this too. You just have to look harder for it. No to U.S. wars at an all-time high. Of course, anti-war sentiments, or at least in polls, I don't know if it shows in people's daily lives or actions or conversations, but they're against these wars of aggression because, of course, our cities and towns are all falling apart. And the rats know that the ship is sinking, and if you need any more proof of this, from the Grand Rapids Press, Blackwater founder and Holland native Eric Prince, I'm sure they mean Holland, Michigan. Eric Prince has moved to Abu Dhabi. Prince last year, of course, severed his ties with Blackwater, now known as XE. But if we grab from the New York Times, current and former colleagues said Mr. Prince hoped to focus on security work from governments in Africa and the Middle East. They also said he was bitter about the legal scrutiny and negative publicity his company had received. He needs a break from America, quote-unquote, said one colleague, speaking only on the condition of anonymity about Mr. Prince's long-rumored move to Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. The rats are running. They've divested themselves. They know the dollar is doomed. They know that America is going to have the rug pulled out from under it in a controlled demolition that's being carried out as we speak. It may look clumsy. Some of them may lose their shirts, but it is, of course, happening by design.